Hello and welcome to the channel. Ta-da! Yep, we got the New Daughters book this week, New Daughters of Khaine book this week, and I read it straight away and I was that happy and excited about it, I've decided to do the review. Yeah, so I'm going to apologise now for mispronunciation, if I talk too fast, if I mumble my words, but I just had to talk about this book. It is so good. Yes, we've lost some temples, which I loved. Yeah, Temple Leicester's gone, but wow. Sorry, no, Temple Leicester Battalion has gone, but what we've got in return, I love it. There is a few things. If a model has had a recent update, so Marathi, the Blood Sisters, Blood Stalkers, and the Iron Scale, etc. I'm not going to go over them because their new rules have already been out and there's nothing changed except for points. Points, Jesus, almost full army reduction. So just want to thank Games Workshop for sending this, and it's for pre-order now, so if you can, order from Justin at Battle Bunker. He does discount and free delivery, so you know. I will go and say first thing, I am really quite, not disappointed, but meh about the Battalions. I know a lot of people's been asking about them. They're not terrible, but they're just not good. The spells, wow. Before going in, let's just go straight into it. So here we go with the pitched battle profiles. I'm just going to go through them all one by one. So the Sisters of Slaughter are 120. The Witch Elves are 100 for 10. Sorry, the Sisters are for 10 as well. Avatar of Khaine is 130, and the Bloodrack Medusa is down to 100. So yeah, again, she's been reduced. The Hag Queen is down to 90, and the Medusa Iron Scale has been reduced as well. She's down to 110 now. Marathi and the Shadow Queen have stayed the same, so 210 and 390. The Warband, I think that is, yep, that's 80 points. The Slaughter Queen is 100. The Bloodrack Shrine is 160, and the Hag Queen on Cauldron is down to 220. That's a massive drop. And the Slaughter Queen on Cauldron is down to 270. The Blood Sisters are 130 for 5, and the Blood Stalkers are 140 for 5. Doomfire Warlocks, they've gone to 120. I can't actually remember if they've gone up or down, but they're now 120. The Canary Shadow Stalkers are 100. The Canary Heartrenders are 80, and so are the Canary Life Takers. So lots have dropped. I do think one or two of them may be changed in the FAQ, but for now they are so cheap. So moving on to the battalions, the Cauldron Guard is 120. The Scath Coven is 140, the Shadow Patrol 130, Shrine Blood is 120, and the Slaughter Troop is 130. The Viperic Guard, I don't know if that's how you say it, sorry, is 140, and the War Coven of Marathi is 100. And on the spells, and you can probably, if you've seen, yep, there's 2 spells and 1 invocation. So the spells, one is the Blade Wind is 40 points, and the Bloodrack Viper is also 40 points, and the Heart of Fury is 80, and it is an invocation of Khaine. So we'll get to that. I think I'll do them next, actually. Okay, so here are the spells. The Bloodrack Viper. It's summoned on a 7, and only Daughters of Khaine wizard can attempt it. If successfully cast, you can set it up wholly within 9 inches of the caster. Abilities: when this model is set up, the player who set it up can immediately make a move with it. And what everyone wants to know, the Fanged Strike. After this model has moved, the player who moved this endless spell must pick 1 unit within 1 inch of it and roll 3 dice. For each roll that is equal to or greater than the unit's wounds characteristic, that 1 model from that unit is slain. That is so good if you're against someone who's daisy chained. That can be brutal, and then obviously Battle Shock will get rid of half, hopefully. You know, it'll work. The next one, the Blade Wind. It is summoned on a 6, and again only a wizard can summon it, and it has to be set up within 9 inches of the caster. And again, it can move when it's set up. So, the Unnatural Edge. After this model has moved, each unit that has any models it passed across and each other unit that this is within 1 inch of at the end of the move suffers D3 mortal wound. In addition, do not apply the cover modifier to save rolls for attacks that target units that are within 12 of this model. So that's great. That's handy for 40 points. I think both of them. Do you know what I mean? They're great. Alright, Heart of Fury. So, if you're familiar with the Corn Judgments, I believe they're called, it's pretty much just one of them. So, a priest has to summon it. So, a Heart of Fury is not set up on the battle at the start of the game. Instead, a Daughters of Khaine priest from your army can summon it to the battlefield by making an invocation roll. Unless noted otherwise, a Heart of Fury cannot be attacked or affected by any spells or abilities. It is treated as friendly model by both armies for any other rules purposes. In order to attempt to summon a Heart of Fury, you must have a model available that is not already in your army and on the battlefield. A Heart of Fury cannot be attempted to be summoned more than once per turn, and it has a pitch battle profile. So the Invocation of Khaine. In your hero phase, one friendly Daughters of Khaine priest can attempt to summon this model. If you do, roll a dice, and on a 3+, the invocation roll is successful. And the model needs to be set up within 12 of the priest. The abilities. Subtract 1 from the damage inflicted to a minimum of 1 by each successful attack that targets a Daughters of Khaine unit wholly within 12 of this model. Yeah, that's awesome. And finally, Pledge to Khaine. At the end of the each battle round, if this model is on the battlefield, the player who set this model up must roll a dice. Add 1 to the roll if there are any avatars of Khaine within 6 inches. On a 1 to 3, this model is removed from the battlefield. Which, after a turn, a lot of things can change in a turn. Units move, so that can be handy to redeploy somewhere else. So there we have the endless spells and the invocation. I'll just point out as well that the Bloodwrack Viper and the Blade Wind are predatory, and they can the Blade Wind can move up to 12 and can fly, and the Bloodwrack Viper 9 inches and can fly. So yeah, I think they're all great, especially for the points. I mean, this one, the invocation is the most expensive at 80, but still, you minus and 1 to damage to any of your units within 12. That's brilliant. So yep, that is going to be painted ASAP when we get it, and it'll be in my next game. So here we go with the Allegiance ability. So the Blood Rites, there's one slight change, and it's to Zealot's Rage. It's now just reroll for melee only. So before you could reroll all hits of a 1, but now it is just in melee. So up next we have Commandabilities. Command traits, sorry. So Bathed in Blood has stayed the same. Increase the general's wound characteristic by 1. So Zealot's Orator has changed. It is now add 2 to the bravery characteristics of friendly Daughters of Khaine units while they're wholly within 12 of this general. So before you could use the generals, but now you just add 2 to your own. If you've got a big unit of 10+, then that's extra helpful. Bloody Sacrifice has changed. Now it's called Sacrificial Overseer, and it's add 1 to the hit rolls for attacks made with melee weapons with this general. So that's very handy. Terrifying Beauty, that has stayed the same. Master of Poisons, it's now for all attacks. So subtract Add 1 to the damage inflicted by successful attacks made by this general, where before it used to be melee only. And True Believer, that stayed the same. And as you can see, the Medusa and the Melusai Iron Scale have got their own few each. So the Medusa, in your hero phase, you can reroll 1 casting, 1 dispelling, or 1 unbinding roll for this general. So it's only 1, but that's still handy. Withering Coils, subtract 1 from hit rolls for attacks that target this general. That's awesome. And Fearsome Presence, you can reroll failed battle shock tests for Daughters of Khaine units while they're wholly within 12 of this general. It's friendly Daughters of Khaine units, sorry. So again, that's really good. So for the Iron Scale, if this general is part of your army and on the battlefield at the start of your hero phase, roll a dice and on a 4+ you receive 1 extra Commandability. That's very handy because there's so many good Commandabilities now. And who doesn't want more Commandability, command points? Add 1 to the save roll for attacks that target this general. And once per battle in your hero phase, you can use the Wrath of Scathborn Commandability on this general's wall scroll without spending a command point. Again, that's great, but that one is so much better. So moving on, we have Artifacts of Power. So Artifacts of Power, a couple of changes here. The Crown of War, it's now subtract 2 from bravery characteristics for enemies while they're within 7, and just the same if any models were slain by wounds inflicted by the bearer, increase this range's ability to 14. Number 2 is Shard Racker's Fang. Pick 1 of the bearer's melee weapons. Add 1 to hit rolls for attacks made with that weapon. In addition, if the unmodified hit roll for an attack is a 6, the target suffers 1 mortal wound in addition. Number 3, Amulet of Dark Fire. Roll a dice each time you allocate a wound to the bearer that was inflicted by a spell, and on a 4+, the wound is negated. That's the same, I believe. Number 4, Crone Blade. Pick 1 of the bearer's melee weapons. At the end of the combat phase, if enemy models were slain, you can heal up to D3 on the bearer. That would be great if you could put it onto Marathi, but you can't. Number 5, 1001 Dark Blessings. Roll a dice each time you allocate a wound or mortal wound to the bearer, and on a 5+, it is negated. And number 6, Blood Bane Venom is just the same as before. So the Medusa's Artifacts of Power. Ooh. So number 1, it is now just add 1 to the casting for the bearer. So that's great. Number 2, the bearer knows 1 additional spell from the Lord of Shadows. Number 3, the Mirror Glaive. Each time the bearer successfully unbinds a spell, they can immediately attempt to cast Arcane Bolt or Mystic Shield as if it were the hero phase, your hero phase. In addition, if the casting roll is successful, the spell cannot be unbound. So that's great. Sevenfold Shadows. Once per battle in your movement phase, instead of making a normal move with the bearer, you can remove the bearer from the battlefield and set it up anywhere within more than 9 inches from the enemy unit. That's great. Crystal Heart. The bearer can attempt to cast 1 extra spell in your hero phase. If you do so, roll a dice before making the casting, and on a 1, the bearer suffers D3 mortal wounds. Yeah. So number 6, Shade Claw. The bearer's Whisper Claw has a rend characteristic of -2 now. So that's the same. Relics of Khaine for priests. Just 1 minor change, and it's number 4, Crimson Shard. The new one is pick 1 of the bearer's melee weapons and add 2 to the wound rolls for it. Before it was a specific weapon. It was the Blade of Khaine, but now you can just pick any you want. So with a few of the spells, it's simple change of a different casting value. So Steed of Shadow now has a casting of 6 instead of 5. Pit of Shade stayed exactly the same. Myrmidon's changed a lot. It's casting of 6 now. Pick 2 friendly Daughters of Khaine heroes wholly within 18 inches of the caster. Remove the heroes from the battlefield and set them up anywhere on the battlefield more than 9 from enemy units. The heroes cannot move in that phase, so that's so much simpler than before, and it's better. Just redeploy couple of heroes. So yeah, great. The Withering has thankfully stayed the same. It's one of my favourites. Mind Razor has changed slightly. It's now cast on an 8. So the first half is the same, improve the unit's melee weapons by 1 rend. And the last part has changed. It's in addition until your next hero phase, add 1 to the damage characteristic if the unit made a charge. So before it went against the enemy unit's bravery, but now it's just if you charge. So you're +1 rend until your next hero phase, and yeah, +1 damage if you charge. So number 6, Shroud of Despair, has stayed the same. Moving on to prayers, and everything is exactly the same. No changes whatsoever. So next we have the temples, and they've pretty much all changed. So the first one, Hag-Nar. The new abilities, add 1 to the number of the current battle round when determining abilities gained from friendly Hag-Nar units from the Blood Right trait. So yeah, just add 1, so turn 1 counts as turn 2. The Commandability. You can use this Commandability at the start of your movement phase. If you do, pick a friendly Hag-Nar Cauldron of Blood within 3 inches of any Hag-Nar unit that have 3 or more models and wholly within 12 of a friendly Hag-Nar hero. Add 3 to the move characteristic of that Cauldron of Blood. So basically, if you're in the right positions, you can add 3 to the movement. It's a lot of hoo-ha for not such an amazing ability, but there you go. So the command trait, the Fanatical Faith battle trait, negates wound on a 5+ instead of 6 if it was wholly within 12 of this general. So that's great. It used to only be 7 inches. And the Artifact of Power, pick 1 of the bearer's melee weapons and add 1 to the damage characteristic if the bearer made a charge move. So that's great. This one, I think this one, if you like running witches, is going to be great. So the abilities, improve the rend characteristic of melee weapons used by friendly witch elves and Sisters of Slaughter units that made a charge move in the same turn. So like people who play witches a lot know how dangerous and brutal they can be if they're buffed right. Imagine adding that on. So the Commandability, you use it in the command phase. Pick a friendly witch elves or Sisters of Slaughter unit wholly within 12 of a hero. Add 1 to the hit rolls for attacks made with melee weapons until the end of that phase. The same unit cannot benefit from this Commandability more than once per turn. So yeah, it's all friendly heroes and units from this temple. Command trait, add 1 to the bravery characteristics of friendly units while they're wholly within 12 of this journal. Sorry, I'm not going to try and say its name. I have no idea how to say it. So, Artifact of Power, pick 1 of the bearer's melee, add 2 to the attack characteristic of that weapon if the bearer made a charge. So this one is, yeah, if you've got a big unit of witches anyway, you want a charge. So that is absolutely the temple for you. Moving on to, oh, I think I missed one. No, the Craith. At the end of the movement phase, you can roll a dice for each friendly Sisters of Slaughter unit that fought once in that phase. On a 5+, they can fight for a second time. Sorry, I didn't realise the camera wasn't. That's great. I mean, yes, it's a 5+, but wow. The command ability. You can use this command ability in the combat phase. If you do so, pick a friendly Sisters of Slaughter unit wholly within 12 of the friendly hero. Add 1 to the wound rolls for attacks made by that unit in that phase. Wow, yep. Again, it can't be used more than once on the same unit per phase. Command trait is, at the end of the combat phase, if this general is on the battlefield and any enemy units were destroyed by attacks made by a friendly Khaine unit in that phase, you receive 1 command point. Yep, great. And the artifact, pick one of the bearer's melee weapons. Once per battle at the start of the combat phase, you can say that the bearer will anoint that weapon with the venom of Negandra. If you do so, pick one enemy unit within 1 inch of the bearer and it suffers d6 mortal wounds. You can't fight with that melee weapon in that combat phase, but if you roll good, it is so worth it, d6 mortal wounds. Up next we have Cauldron Guard. The general ability, subtract 1 from hit rolls that target this unit with missile weapons. So yep, that's the same as before, I believe. The Commandability, you can use this Commandability at the end of your movement phase. If you do so, pick one friendly Cauldron unit wholly within 12 of a friendly Cauldron hero that is a general. Remove the unit from the battlefield and set it up anywhere more than 9 inches from enemy units. This unit cannot move in the next movement phase. So redeploy. That's great because objectives. Yep. The command trait, subtract 1 from hit rolls for attacks made with melee weapons that target this general. So your general is -1 to hit from melee and missiles. Artifacts of power, pick one of the bearer's melee weapons. If the unmodified hit for the attack is a 6, the attack inflicts 1 mortal wound in addition. So not instead of, in addition. And up next, we have a brand new one, and this is the one I used in the battle report. It is Khaine. Friendly Khaine units can retreat and still charge later in the same turn. Commandability, you can use it at the start of the command phase. If you do so, pick a friendly Khaine unit wholly within 12 of a friendly Khaine hero. Until your next hero phase, if the unmodified hit for an attack made with melee weapon that targets this Khaine unit is a 1, the attacking unit suffers a mortal wound. So it's basically the old temple nest. It costs you a command point now, but it's amazing. I love it, especially now that you have more options for battle lines, so I can use more my snakes in bigger units. Command trait, the circling flock. Once per battle at the end of the movement phase, you can say that this general will summon a flock of canaries to the battle. If you do so, you can add 1 canary harpies unit of 5 models to your army. Wow. Yeah, that's awesome, and I did use it. The artifact of power, pick one of the bearer's melee weapons. If the unmodified hit roll for an attack with that weapon is a 6, it scores 2 hits on the target instead of 1. So yeah, that's absolutely brilliant. I love that one. And finally, Zenith Car, however you say that one. It's exactly the same as in the Marathi book, so we'll not see that. Here are the battalions. So the great big one. You need 1 Viperic Guard, 1 Cauldron Guard, 1 Slaughter Troop, 1 Skaith Coven, and 1 Shadow Patrol. So you do not take battle shock tests for units from this battalion if Marathi Khaine is part of your army and on the battlefield. So, yep, there is other ways to get to stop you from taking battle shock. So while I'm not fussed on this one, it's not bad, don't get me wrong, but yeah. The Cauldron Guard, so you need 1 Hag Queen, 2 units of Witch Elves and 2 units of Canary Life Takers. Add 1 to run and charge rolls for units from this battalion. Yeah, not bad. Slaughter Troop, you need 1 Slaughter Queen, 2 units of Slaughter Sisters and 2 units of Canary Heartrenders. Units from this battalion can retreat and still shoot and or charge later in the same turn, so that's great. Shadow Patrol, 2 units of Doomfire Warlocks and 4 units of Canary Harpies. In your movement phase, instead of making a normal move with a unit from this battalion, you can see that it will navigate the shadow paths. If you do so, remove the unit from the battlefield and set it up anywhere else more than 9 from enemy units. So yeah, readable again if you want for objectives. There we go. Scathe Coven, 1 Bloodrack Medusa or Melusi Iron Scale, 1 to 4 units of Blood Sisters, 1 to 2 units of Blood Stalkers, and 0 to 2 units of Canary Harpies. Do not take battle shock tests for units from this battalion. So yeah, it's the same as the Cauldron Guard. No, it's not, sorry, no, ignore me. Viperic Guard, Marathi of Khaine, the Shadow Queen, 1 to 2 Bloodrack Medusas or Melusi Iron Scales in any combination, and 2 to 3 units of Blood Sisters or Blood Stalkers in any combination. So for what I like to run, this one is it is my most favourable for what we need, but the ability, once per battle, a hero from this battalion can use the Commandability without using a command point. So yeah, it's not, again, not bad, but it's not wow. So next we have the Shrine Blood. We need 2 Bloodrack Shrines, 2 units of Blood Sisters or Blood Stalkers in any combination, and 2 units of Canary Harpies. In your hero phase, you can pick any number of units from this battalion that are within 6 inches of the Bloodrack Shrine from the same battalion. 1 model from each unit you picked is slain. You can heal 1 wound allocated to the Bloodrack Shrine for each Canary Harpy models that were slain, and you can heal up to 2 wounds allocated to the Bloodrack Shrine for each Melusi model that was slain. So yeah, I don't know, I'm on 2 minds about that one. Right, then let's have a look at the units. So I'm not going to go through everything. I'll literally just say what has been changed. Marathi and the Shadow Queen, they're the same from the Mortal Realms books. But the Bloodrack Shrine, so the Bloodrack stair has now increased to 12 inches. And I'm going to just say this once because it's for everything that has one. The brackets have been reduced for damage table. So there's now only 4 for everything. So abilities. The only thing that's changed is the bladed impact. You now pick a specific unit. So before it used to be the nearest, but now it's you can pick one. And the only other thing, she now has a new ability called the Whisper Claw, which is any unmodified hits of a 6 for the Whisper Claw weapon. It now, any hits of a 6, it's a mortal wound instead. So that's the only change from her. They are called that the Bloodrack Medusa, that was the Bloodrack Shrine. But moving on to the Medusa herself, she again gains the Whisper Claw, so any unmodified hits of a 6. The only other change is the Whisper Claw itself. It now hits on a 4 instead of a 3. So everything else for her stays the same. So the Hag Queen on Cauldron of Blood. Changes to her attacks. There's only one, and the Hag Queen's Blade of Corn now wounds on a 3+ instead of a 4+. Her abilities, Witch Brew, has changed, unfortunately. Now, it's not totally nerfed, but it is now. At the start of your hero phase, you can pick 1 friendly Daughters of Khaine unit wholly within 12 of this model to drink a Witch Brew. If you do so, roll a dice, adding 1 to the roll for each of the following abilities that this model has gained. So it's Headlong Fury, Zealot's Rage, and Slaughter's Strength, which are obviously the blood rights. Add on a 5+, you can reroll wounds for attacks made with melee weapons by that unit until your next hero phase. And in addition, on a 5+, do not take battle shock tests. So the abilities itself have stayed the same, but it is slightly harder, especially turn 1, to get that off. But yeah, it's still an awesome ability. The Hag Queen herself. All that's changed with her is her Blade of Khaine weapon now wounds on a 3 instead of a 4. The Slaughter Queen on Cauldron of Blood. Very few changes. In fact, the only 2 changes is the Idol of Worship ability. So it's add 1 to the bravery characteristic of friendly Daughters of Khaine units while they're wholly within 12 of a friendly avatar. So it used to only be 7, now it's 12. And the last change is her Commandability. So it's just slightly been tweaked, and now it's the unit picked must not have fought already. So before it could, now it can't. And the Slaughter Queen herself is exactly the same. Nothing has changed at all for her. Okay, so the Witch Elves, they have changed slightly. Their standard bearer, now you don't roll 2 dice for Battle Shock, you re-roll failed Battle Shock tests. So before you could roll 2 and pick the lowest. Now you just re-roll failed Battle Shocks. So the Frenzied Fever, that's changed altogether. So now it is +1 to wound if you're within 12 of a hero, which I like. I like that a lot. Because you're already getting more attacks for paired weapons, basically. So now you're +1 to wound as well. Sisters of Slaughter, they've stayed the same again, except the standard bearer, which is the same as the Elves. So you re-roll Battle Shocks. I'm going to point this out now because it's the same for all units. So each leader, instead of getting +1 to hit, each leader now gets 1 extra attack. Doomfire's got a little bit better. Their Doomfire crossbows are now range 12 and we're wounding on 3s instead of 4s. And both of their melee attacks got slightly better. So the Cursed Smiter, whatever it's called, sorry, is a wounding on a 3s, and the Vicious Bites are wounding on a 4 instead of 5. There has been changes to their spell as well. It's add 1 to the casting and binding rolls for this unit while it has 5 or more models instead of, it used to be 10. And the spell, what's changed is the range is now within 12 inches instead of what it was before. So a little change to the avatar. His Idol of Worship is now 12 inches instead of 7, so that's +1 bravery for Daughters of Khaine units within 12. And he's gained an ability called Altar of Khaine, and it's add 1 to prayer rolls for friendly Daughters of Khaine priests while they're wholly within 9 of friendly models with this ability. So other than that, he hasn't changed. So Blood Sisters and Stalkers, they're still the same from the Marathi book, so I'll not go over them. But next up we have the Canaries. Okay, so the Life Takers have changed slightly. So the Descent into Battle, it's been added that at the end of turn 4, if you haven't brought them on, the unit is destroyed. But Death on the Wind has changed. It is now add 1 to damage characteristic if this unit's barbed sickles, and improve the rend characteristic of this weapon by 1 if it's made a charge move. So that's very nice. And the Canary Heart Renderers, the only change is what I mentioned earlier, is that the leader now gets extra attack instead of +1 to hit.